welcome back to the channel. As you guys can see, the SS is back on the lift, and today's video was not really a planned one. And as you guys know, coming home from a Corvette show a few weeks ago, maybe it was like 4 or 5 weeks ago, the Corvette started running really odd, like something was going on. The car, when you're in park, is fine. It doesn't really idle any differently. It doesn't run any differently, but when you have it in reverse or drive and you have your foot on the brakes, the car's almost idling like it's got a big cam in it. So something's going on. I don't know if it's drivetrain related. I don't think it's tune related. I've checked the codes. There's no check engine lights. I already checked under the hood. All the wiring's still plugged in. You know, nothing came undone or unplugged that I could see, at least from up top. So we've just got this really weird vibration issue going on, and you can even notice it when you're in a park. And where it's really bad is when you're on your interstate, saying going like 60, 65 miles an hour, just the whole rear end is shaking like horribly bad. And okay, if we had a vibration at speed, but we didn't have it at idle, you know, I would think, okay, maybe the new tires or the new tire sensors that we had put on, maybe something got out of whack with the wheel weights and wheel alignment and all that stuff. But no, this is actually happening when you're in park, not in park, but when you're stopped at a stop sign or you're just not in motion and the car is at rest and it's still idling like it shouldn't be. Not idling, but just the whole car shaking like it shouldn't be. Something's wrong and something's really kind of crazy going on. So with the car having that issue when you're in drive or reverse and the drive shaft isn't moving, maybe it's something torque converter related. You know, I'm just not entirely sure. It's not making any noise. I'm not hearing any clanking. I'm not hearing any like horrible noise when the car is in motion. So today we're going to try to diagnose what's going on, and that's why the car is up on the lift, because I need to get underneath it and see what's going on. So, all right, guys. So I have tried to tighten down the drive shaft bolts on the front and the back that's behind me. And guys, the drive shaft bolts are all tight. Nothing is loosened up there. So, so what I thought might be the problem actually has nothing to do with the problem. So the next thing I'm going to check is actually the torque converter bolts. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop that front wet sump belly pan that we made and take that off. Take the inspection shield off on the bottom of the torque converter. Pull that off and see if the problem lies in there. Alright guys, I'm not sure what you're going to be able to see here, but if you guys can see, there is a torque converter bolt. We took the little access panel off down here as well as right here. And I just wanted to show you what we're seeing. I've looked at 2 out of the 3 bolts for the torque converter. Everything looks fine. There's no metal wear. It doesn't look like it's moved. Sometimes these torque converters the bolts can back out, but I haven't seen any indication of that. I will go ahead and rotate the engine over and find the 3rd torque converter bolt, but I think we're good for torque converter bolt and the drive shaft bolts. The only last thing that I don't really want to look at is that carrier bearing. Alright guys, well, it's been a good couple hours since we last checked in, and got some interesting news, sort of. So I actually posted my Facebook account, you know, just asking my group of friends, which includes tuners, LS shop owners and stuff, you know, people that are in and out of these cars, you know, every day. And a couple people suggested check the motor mounts. Haven't checked that yet, but I'm pretty sure that's not the problem. You know, one of my friends actually had that's carrier bearing failure. And he said, you know, jack the car up, put the car in drive and see if the drive shaft or anything in the rear end's kind of looking weird. So I did actually have the car driving for a good solid 10 minutes. You know, it's sitting in the air like this. And I didn't see anything. The drive shaft was kind of shaking in its normal route. It wasn't off kilter or anything. You know, I looked at it at different angles so that my line of sight was not the same every time. And I didn't see it, you know, being out of round. I didn't see it, you know, kind of just being not going in a circular motion like it's supposed to. I think the carrier bearing's fine. Then I kind of tracked it down to, so one of my friends said, hey, are you getting any misfires? I was like, you know, I don't have any codes. You know, the check engine light isn't on, so I didn't even think of it being anything hardware side on the engine. I thought it was all transmission or back, you know, so that's kind of why we ended up checking out the drive shaft, the torque converter bolts, basically everything that I've touched that I thought I may have messed up at some point. You know, so that's kind of what, you know, what the direction we were going. I was like, well, let's just check the code. So I scanned it, and I have a fault code for the MAF sensor and the map sensor. Now this car is an SD tuned car, so speed density tuned, and they don't really use the map sensor. They use the map and the IAT sensor. So just for giggles, I actually unplugged the map sensor, and I did get another error. And the error that it displayed was actually basically that the car was not detecting, I think it was a low circuit volume, not high circuit. So basically it was saying that the map sensor wasn't there. So I unplugged it. The idling was still the same. It's kind of like it sounds like it's cammed, which obviously we know it's not. So we checked that. So I think that we can actually rule out the map sensor since we're basically not using it in the tune. And on this car, we actually have the IAT sensor split off because the ZL1 lid has a separate IAT sensor. That's it right here. And we have it split off in the harness. So, you know, it's not pulling the IAT from the intake tube itself. And then that got me thinking, I'm like, okay, could it be a vacuum issue? So you guys will see we have a bottle of mass airflow sensor cleaner, and then that's a throttle body and air tank cleaner. So I started spraying both of those substances around the map sensor, the throttle body, the PCV valve that we added, you know, this little PCV check valve and all that stuff. So I started spraying that. I didn't notice the idling going up at all. It was still mis-idling, and it didn't make an audible. If one of those surfaces was leaking, and I thought maybe that would be it, but then again, that kind of narrows it down to maybe the map sensor. The hard thing to say about the SS is, I know it's always had a couple codes, but I don't remember the map sensor being one of those codes. And you know, I'm thinking about it. That is critical for this speed density tune. Maybe it's flip-flopping between speed density and like the normal MAF tune because that sensor's not right. So just by going on that, I think I'm just gonna go ahead and order that sensor. I looked it up. It's only 30 bucks on Amazon. I think Summit had it for about the same price, maybe a little bit more, but I'll have a link down in the description down below for this map sensor. All right, guys, the map sensor has finally come in, and this is from GM. Part number 12592525. And this part took a little bit over a week to get. I ordered it on a Sunday. It's been a whole week. It's finally came in on Saturday. So, all right, guys, we finished swapping out this sensor. It is a 10mm bolt, and that probably torques down to like 8 foot-pounds. It's very light. So just swap the sensor. We already got the wiring harness plugged back in. Oh, I do want to say one thing. I did actually remove that extension harness out of the car, and I checked all the pins. Everything looks good. You know, the sensor looks fine, so I don't think it's anything wiring related. So let's go ahead, fire the car up, and see what this thing does. Still giving us that same map sensor. So that must be just in the tune, the 103 powertrain. Yeah, that has to do with the mass airflow sensor. That's not unexpected with the speed density tune. So at this point, guys, I am not entirely sure what's going on with the car. It's still idling kind of rough. I can feel it. Yeah, it's just not idling the same. Like, you can feel the car shaking. It's not as bad as it was, but I could still feel, if you guys could see the hood, I'm not sure if you'll be able to see that, but yeah, the hood's shaking. Like, it's just not right. All right, guys, we're back out here on the SS, and we've been out here for a few hours today. I was actually under the car a few days ago, and I noticed some carbon up around where the spark plugs are. You know, the spark plugs have those little metal shields on them. You can see them over there. Well, one of those metal shields, those little cylinders, had a bunch of carbon on it. And when we put these headers in like 3 or 4 years ago, I ended up putting them in with the provided gaskets, and those are from Cook's. Well, at the time I didn't know it, but the Cook's gaskets are actually pretty low quality, and they tend to leak. And so yeah, I was like, all right, well, if it's leaking around a cylinder, you know, one cylinder, maybe it's leaking around more than one. And boy, guys, we are correct. So as you guys can see, we actually have the passenger side header over here. here's the gasket. And so this is going to be from front to back, you know, your 2, 4, 6, 8 cylinders. And we definitely blew out cylinder number 6 and cylinder number 8. Heck, even cylinder number 2 had some blow by right here. And cylinder number 4 had a little bit, but not that much, but definitely blowouts here, here, maybe a little bit here and here. So that's on the front of the gasket. And the other side, couple leaks, definitely a blowout here, and on the bottom here a little bit. But if you guys look at the header itself, let's look at it from the car side. So, you know, blowout here for sure, 2 spots here, a little bit right there, and definitely 2 spots there. So that's actually over on the exhaust side. But if you guys look at the engine side, you'll see that, you know, the spark plugs are out, the coil packs are out, and the coil pack harness is also out as well. The last thing we're gonna do today is actually remove the valve cover, because one of my friends suggested, he's a LS tuner, he said, you know what, since you're already taking it down that much, just go ahead and take the valve cover off and just make sure the valve springs, the rocker arms, and all that are in good shape. Because the LS3s in particular, in the Corvette, you know, SS, whatever, they're known to kind of explode, you know, the rocker arms. So we'll do that next and show you what's on the inside of the valve cover. All right, guys, we got the valve cover off, and I just wanted to show you what's in here. And inside the motor, I have touched every single one of the valve springs and the rocker arms. Everything looks good. I've tried to wiggle them all, and obviously the ones that are not under pressure will move a little bit, but I don't see any broken valve springs. I don't see any rocker arms that are like loose, like overly loose. Nothing's broken in here. I'm not seeing any of the roller bearings those little needle bearings that kind of go inside the cylinder head. I'm not seeing anything there, so I think we're good. Now let's show you the replacement. So here's the original gasket. We've shown you that before, but we got a set of AC Delco gaskets, and the part number is 12617944. And as you can see, we have 2 of them. So if we want to fix the driver's side as well, we can do the same thing. Basically, it's going to be the same steps. Remove spark plug wires, coil packs, pop the valve cover off just to check it, and pop the header off. So that's pretty much it. So what we're going to do is we're going to put that new gasket on the cylinder head, get the exhaust put back together on the car, and I think we're going to fire this thing up. Alright, it's idling a little bit better. What's kind of weird is I'm actually hearing the exhaust come out the back now. It's like a noticeably audible difference. Alright guys, I'm not sure if you can hear that, but it's still idling pretty hard. Alright guys, last time we left off, we had replaced the passenger side gasket, you know, for the exhaust. We had taken a look at the rockers. Well, I actually just ended up finishing the driver's side as well. And what we did over there was I removed the spark plugs, I removed the header, replaced the header gasket with another GM gasket. Yeah, that's kind of the box over there. I also threw in a new set of spark plugs. So what we're going to go with is this set of NGK Iridium 7s. So these are basically some TR7s, and the part number is 3690. So I actually did a lot of research on these spark plugs, and this was kind of the spark plug recommendation if you're going to, you know, modify your LSA at all. And I saw these over on the CTSV forums as well as the CTSV owners group. So that's kind of how I was pointed toward the direction of these, and I started looking on Amazon, you know, various places that have feedback, and you know, these actually had pretty good feedback. So the other thing that I discovered was actually when I removed the spark plugs on the passenger side, I realized that I still had the stock spark plugs from when this car was NA, you know, when it was just standard LS3 without any of the LSA stuff on it. So those stock spark plugs are over 6 years old, and like I said, those are for an NA application, not for boost. And the kind of weird thing is when we had the car tuned several years ago, actually we've had it tuned twice, they didn't say anything about the spark plug, so I guess the stock LS3 can see some boost, but not a ton. So, you know, with these TR7s, we've got room to grow, and these should idle pretty well. The only recommendation I saw was don't run the TR7s with the iridium if you're running nitrous. Well, obviously we're not running any nitrous, and so we should be able to, if we ever do a smaller pulley down the road, you know, we should not have to change the spark plugs. And the other thing is, we are approaching 20,000 miles, so not that you have to replace spark plugs every 20,000 miles. You know, we're kind of at that time frame. It's been 6 years, so they probably need to be replaced anyway. So, oh, and one more thing. This is the driver's side gasket. There is some leaking on it, especially around the bottom there and the top there. It's not anywhere near as bad as the passenger side was, but you know, this gasket, this is the cook's gasket, and there's even some wear and tear on this one as well. All right, guys, so we have finished putting the coil packs and everything, new spark plugs on both the passenger and driver's side. We've replaced both gaskets, you know, the exhaust gaskets. So let's go ahead and fire this thing up. Let's let this thing warm up a little bit. The hood isn't shaking anywhere near how it was earlier. Let's give it a little gas. Guys, I think we're good. The car is not idling anywhere near as rough as it was, you know, before we did the plugs and those gaskets. Now, I can't say for sure which was the fix. Was it the gaskets or the plugs? I'm kind of thinking the plugs. All right, guys. The car is definitely quieter. I guess that those new exhaust gaskets really did clear up, because I'm not hearing anything. I'm more hearing the injectors and kind of the lifters, because these LS motors, they make that sewing machine sound, but that's really all we're hearing. And the one thing I wanted to confirm was the cylinder temperature. Okay, yeah, 200. Last time I measured this, it was like 120, maybe 110. So yeah, we're definitely getting full burning of the fuel now, I think. Alright guys, so that's pretty much gonna be it for this project. I was not expecting this to be the ignition system. You know, we kind of moved all over the car. We checked the drive shaft, we checked the torque converter bolts, you know, we kind of just looked at it one system at a time. And then we eventually moved to the code reader. Didn't see any codes, nothing new. You know, we tried the map sensor, nothing new there. I do have one extra map sensor. It's what's a 2 or 3 bar GM sensor. I might just save it as backup, whatever. But yeah, and then finally, you know, I used a digital thermometer, took readings of every cylinder, and like I said, I found that 1 or 2 cylinders that were 80 to 100 degrees cooler than the rest. Now I will say this is not the most accurate way of doing this. Like, we don't have an EGT temperature probe in each cylinder, so I couldn't tell you the actual rating, but that thermometer is just a good tool to have in your toolbox. They're fairly cheap, and honestly it helped us narrow down to what we thought it was a problem. You know, it ended up being kind of ignition related. We're like, okay, is it spark plug, coil pack, or spark plug wire? We moved things around, and eventually we came to the conclusion that we just had bad plugs. So that's kind of a long video and explanation of what was going on, but really the only other thing that we might end up replacing are the spark plug wires. I'm not really sure at this point if we're going to do that just yet. Do want to go for a test drive and see how it works, but you know, just getting the idle back to normal, I think we're good. And if I did end up replacing the spark plug wires, I would honestly probably go with the same set of MSDs that I have back on the Corvette over here. You know, I haven't had any ignition problems with that car, and as I always say, stick with the GM coil packs. You really don't need any aftermarket ones. I think the stock ones are good for 1,000 or 1,200 horsepower or something like that. So on that note, I think we're going to wrap this video up. I hope you guys enjoyed the progress of this project, kind of diagnosing each system and eventually finding it to be the spark plugs. So if you guys enjoyed the video, give it a big thumbs up. If you guys haven't subscribed, please do. Also, if you want to know when I upload new content, make sure you click the bell notification button down below. And if you guys want to help support the channel, click all the links down below. I'll try to have links to the parts that we bought for this, the map sensor, spark plugs, all that stuff. And also check out our website, BonecrrusherSS.com. Thanks, guys. Have a great one.